All right. I think the board is ready. We have a little bit of time to get that open. All right. Welcome everybody to the Mineral Mining Review Board for 2023. I am now chair. That was decided last year, so I'll be running the meeting. I appreciate some patience since this will be my first time running this and opening all of this stuff. So let's call the meeting to order at 9:59 a.m. Oh, is that?
Wheel saying it's preparing to stream, so you might have to repeat that.
Okay. Well, that'll put us right at 10 a.m. So.
Yeah, there's usually a little bit of buffer time on the stream. Yep.
Is this still working? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Let's call this meeting to order at 10 o'clock a.m. And the first item on the agenda is to review the minutes from last year, February 22nd, 2022. Can I get a motion to accept those minutes?
I'll make a motion. We can add any comments in the interim before we finalize it, but I'll make the motion to approve the minutes from last year.
Support.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. The 2022 meeting minutes have been approved. All right, since this is a public meeting, we allow time for general comment for items that are not on the agenda. So if anybody is in attendance who has a public comment that does not have to do with the 3 mines on the agenda, please speak at this time, or I'd like to open the public meeting, right? Okay, I would like to open the public comment. Doesn't look like there's any public comment for a general item, so I will close the public comment period. All right, so now that we have the general stuff out of the way, let's open up and start talking about the mineral mining license renewals. The first mine we have on the agenda is the Meekhof Properties site over on Butterworth. And so we like to start these off with a representative from that mine to kind of talk about the plan for 2023, any remaining items from 2022. So if a representative from the Meekhof mine could come up and talk about that project. Could you turn on that mic just so then it'll pick up for when we do minutes? Thank you.
This year, we didn't do a whole lot of sand extraction. Most of our sand extraction is coming out of the east pit, which is in the city of Grand Rapids, but we're working towards the center pit. We did a little bit out of the center pit. I think we did a little bit of embankment out of the west pit here. We did restore some more areas, and I don't know what you got them there. Is that shown on the plans there?
Yeah, that's shown here. We had there's a bit of area that's in progress being reclaimed on sheet 300 in that west pit area.
Yep. I know we did reclaim a fair portion of that there. Mm-hmm. We did do the compaction test. We got those. I think Scott was asking for those last year. We did several of those. All of them they show a compact state, right? Chris, you looked at those too, yeah. And yeah, we're just continuing on here. One change, we have started preliminary talks with a golf course architect. We think that's a good plan for this. So we're working at getting this restored back to the original elevations to make it a nice view over the city. And plans are really preliminary at this point, but we think that'll be the future for this.
All right, thank you. I would like to open this up to the board to discuss their review, any review comments. Maybe start with you, Travis.
Okay, so I have a lot of nitty-gritty comments. So before I get into all of my nitty-gritty ones, I'll let other people talk for a little bit. Maybe talk bigger picture first, before I kind of zero in on that, if that's okay.
Well, what I'd like to do is just go back to the conditions from last year and just make sure that we've got all those complete. And the first item is the letter of credit. And we look at the expiration date on those things. So where are we at when it comes to your current letter of credit?
So we switched banks from Huntington to Choice One, and they had to go through some things. So it is in the works. It should be here this week.
Okay.
I think we have another couple weeks or something on that.
So that's a potential condition of approval then, is we need to receive the updated letter of credit by April 1st. What about the rest? You want me to read through and then just have you respond? Or let's do that. So the first conditioning approval item from last year is to update your plan and application to reflect the engineer of record. I see Jack Barr's name on there. Is that your engineer of record then?
Yes, Jack Barr is placing the seal on the plan. I'm representing him here today.
Okay. And then item number 2 we've covered, which is to make sure we update your letter of credit. Item number 3 has several items for the property at 2472 Butterworth, that the area needs to be stabilized and added to the reclamation plan. And then provide an updated agreement with the property owner to the adjacent, either having them sign the application or have an agreement with Meekhof, and then update that disturbed area note on the reclamation plan. What's the status of those 3?
That note has been added on 300 that the 1.32 acres at 2472 O'Brien Street is reclaimed and mining is closed out there.
I think you're referring to Rick Oliver, and that was
Yeah.
submitted right after last year.
Yep. And I see there was an agreement in your packet. I assume that was for the adjacent property owner?
Yes, that agreement that was included in that packet was from the previous years.
Previous
I don't remember
years.
exactly which property that pertains to.
I think that's Rick Oliver. right?
Yeah, Rick Oliver, okay.
Okay.
Yes, that was included again this year.
So
For
those are
record.
done. And then we've got include soil erosion control at the top of Hall Road in the west pit to minimize tracking.
Yes, I believe that was the cattle guard that we added last year.
Well, we didn't
Or
get it
not
right
last year,
now. Up
that was
at
a
the top where
yeah.
where the asphalt ends, that's a continual thing. We keep adding 1x3 big chunks of slag, and that keeps getting dirty, so we keep replacing it. Yeah, it seems to work, but then we have to just replace it.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be the cattle guard style. It can be that as long as it's maintained. And then if we could just get that plan updated to show it at the top instead of right at Butterworth. And yeah, it doesn't have to be a cattle guard. Those are nice because they don't have to be maintained as often. I know there's some cost, so whatever works best for the mine, just that we're getting that dirt off those tires, and then hopefully that length of that haul road will get the rest off before it gets into Butterworth.
Okay.
Okay. And let's see, the other items that we have out there are update the disturbed area on the mineral mining application, as well as the following on the plan. Show future safety fence locations, show compact testing on all plans, label all addresses on plan sheet, and then provide community development with a PDF of all the civil plans. Where are we at on those detail items?
Yeah, we added some of the addresses that were in question. We have some proposed safety fence on the future phases in the east pit. As for the plans, I believe that was just an electronic submission issue that we sorted out after the meeting last year.
On the glass, are you showing where the compaction tests were as well?
Yes, the compaction tests are shown on all sheets. Those were added to 300 and I believe C200 as well, along with the dates and the identifying numbers that correspond with those tests.
All right, I agree with you on that. And then the last item has to deal with excavation that extends 5 feet below the reclamation contours. Any of that proposed?
Yeah, that note was added on 300 regarding needing approval for excavations that go 5 feet below those contours. I don't know if you're proposing any this year.
Yeah, so we talk about this every year.
Yeah.
If it's a 60-foot bank, more than likely there's gonna be 10 foot of clay at some point in that bank.
Yeah.
And so by that rule, we can't excavate anything out. If we take out the good sand, there's gonna be 10 feet of clay that goes back in that hole.
Yeah.
And so technically, that's over 5 feet. And so this is what we've been doing for the past 20 years.
I know Scott Connors brings this up every year, but I think I'm fine with what they're proposing to do there. This is a site that's undercut, and,
I think
If-
you want to just make sure we get the compaction test going, which was started in these last few years, just to make sure that it is compact at that point.
yeah. All right, looks like that's the conditions from last year. A couple of things come through. They will need the letter of credit updated by 4/1/23 for this year. And then, Rachel, it sounds like you're asking that the top of the Hall Road should have updated soil erosion details added.
Yeah, just adjust where that control is shown.
Okay.
All right, I think I'm out of the way.
Thank you, Frank. Let's go to the rest of the board.
Okay, Travis Mabry, Engineering Department, sitting in for Scott here, or taking over for him, I should say, Mineral Mining. Apologize in advance, this is kind of like a site plan review type stuff I'm gonna get into, little nitty-gritty comments here. I have 11 of them, I'll just go through them one by one, we'll talk through them, and we'll go that way. So you talked about, Chris, I think your name's on the application, and you said you're representing Jack, whose stamp is on the plans. I read through the ordinance, it's not exactly clear, but I think our preference would be to have the same name on the application and the plans.
Okay.
I think we're fine for this, I mean, you can amend them for this, the plans for this year or not, we'll talk about that as a board, but moving forward, I think this comment comes up on all the plan sets. We'd just like to see the same engineer on the plans and the application.
Okay.
A lot of my comments come off of sheet C300, just so if you want to look at that. The next comment was the buffer along Butterworth Drive. I think it shows it on the plans as a 30-foot setback from the right-of-way line, and the ordinance requires a 50-foot setback. I don't know if there's a history here, or if we just need to move the line back on the plan. A lot of that area's already been reclaimed. I think we just want to show it as 50-foot setback along Butterworth.
Okay.
Good?
Fine. Yeah.
Comment 3 was on, once again, sheet C300. I had a little difficulty with the different layers of the aerial images and the shaded out areas. Trying to see the phase 2-3 line, kind of where it goes. I see it running north-south, and then it just kind of disappears. So that's just a general comment, if you can change the line weight on that so that we can see the phase boundary a little better, exactly where it kind of lays out.
Okay.
Fourth comment was existing contours. In some areas of the plans, they're really easy. So you got proposed contours overlaid over existing contours. And it looks like on sheet C300, it's pretty easy to read both of them. I think it was the following sheet, which is 301, where I started having little problems where I could read the proposed contours, but I didn't see a lot of labels on the existing ones. So if you could just update more existing contour labels on sheet 301, once you get into, I know that's phase, a lot of that is probably future phase, or no, I guess it's part of phase 2 too. That'll help. We talked a little bit about the cattle grate at Butterworth. I was a little confused if it was existing or proposed, because I think there's kind of two labels on there. One says existing cattle guard measure to remain, and then proposed cattle guard. So are you talking about expanding it? Is it, or just maintaining what's there?
We can clarify that. That is installed already, so
That's,
I'm assuming one of those notes was, might have been a carryover from previous year.
Yep, that's fine.
we don't have anything at the.
Oh, it's not.
At the throat there, so I'm not sure how that got on there, but that should be removed.
Okay.
And, up top is where we have our 1x3
okay.
slag, which, acts as the knocking off the,
So you guys have an aggregate drive right now, it sounds like, or a,
no, it's paved all the way up to the top, and then at where the pavement ends up top there is where we have our 1x3 slag that knocks the dirt off.
but then you're
That's
put,
fine.
okay, but they're, okay. Long as that note gets updated with what's out there or
Okay.
what's going out there.
Yep.
My main comment, like the main point of discussion probably is this comment. So back to sheet C300, I think it's technically in the phase 3 area. So it's a little bit towards it's the west pit, the east side of the west pit. It looks like if I'm looking at existing contours and proposed contours, that we have upwards of like 40, 50 feet of fill going on there. And I think that gets back to Scott's original comment of getting compaction, like that's where the 5 foot below reclamation contours we don't want to see. So if it's existing 614, does it have to go up to 660? If it stays at 614, then you have good compaction of the land there, right? It's when we start adding fill on top of wherever the current existing land lays at, where we start having problems. So that's the kind of stuff that we don't want to see more than 5 foot of fill comes from, where that ordinance comes from on this. So I'll let you talk through that a little bit. Are you really proposing and bringing in that much fill on that part of the site, and what's the reasoning for that?
Yeah, so the history of this site is it's been undermined. So all of this site is undermined. And so from way back when, 20, 30 years, you can't build anything on this site.
Yeah, okay.
And so we've been okayed for the past however many years with these plans. And we think it's doing a better job of stabilizing because it's not just sand now that acts like an hourglass. Because there are still some sinkholes here and there that form once they shut off.
You're talking about the gypsum undermining of the entire site, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And so by bringing in layers of clay, it acts more like, it's not an hourglass. And where we have filled in, there is less, or none. There is no sinkholes where we filled in.
So I think with that, if this site's obviously it's been gypsum mined before, but when we're bringing in lots and lots of fill, and this isn't just this site, this could be any site, we're bringing in lots and lots of fill. If the final use is a golf course, fine, right? The land can settle over time, and it's not that big of an issue. What you don't want to see is buildings on 50 feet of fill that haven't been properly compacted. And so maybe just going forward, once they move forward with, say, like a golf course plan, we note on the plan, hey, the site has gypsum undermining on it. There's been a lot of fill brought in on top of the sand mining operation, and we annotate it so that, I don't know, 20 years down the road when this golf course wants to become a development, I'm not saying it can't happen, it just means that there needs to be more geotechnical investigation out there, and we want to have something in our records that reminds us of that. So that was my comment on the fill.
I think anybody who would come in and try to put something on there would do the investigation, find the mine shafts, and they wouldn't.
Yeah.
There's no way anybody would build anything on there.
Yep. Okay, so back to sheet. Thanks for bearing with me. I'm going to comment 7 of 11 here. So sheet 300, the southwest corner of the west pit here, there's a diagonal hatched area in the grayed out restoration area. So you got the kind of the solid gray that talks about, I think that was like a reclaimed area. And then within that solid gray, there's a black dark border around the cross hatching. Can you see it, or if you have the
I
mouse
think
maybe?
vaguely right where
Yeah,
you're
yep,
talking.
right there. Yep. What is that?
Right where,
Yep, right there.
that is in progress.
So it's
That's where that
in
hatch is
progress restoration?
Yeah, it's being reclaimed. It's still included within the disturbed area, but it's being worked on.
I think we ran out of growing season on that one.
Okay, so maybe and that kind of ties into the note that's kind of by that area. It talks about, the way I read it, I think it said reclamation completed in 2021, but but then it also mentions ongoing in 2022.
So maybe just break
We're in
those notes up
2023. So we can just clean up that note, to just say the crosshatched area is ongoing restoration in 2023. I think that'll take care of that issue. Okay, compaction test. You mentioned there were some compaction tests completed. We saw them in the application. And this isn't just this site, this is every site. Maybe moving forward on the plans, unless I'm missing them, maybe we can call out where compaction tests have been done.
Yeah, those are on there.
I see, is that where it says
Yeah,
soil
we got
boring?
Boring 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so that's the soil boring
Yeah.
locations. Okay,
Those are leaders pointing to the locations.
okay. Maybe we can just label them compaction test with a date on it so that we know in the future that those were completed. And then, so those are the past ones. And there's a general note on here about compaction tests in that same area. Maybe we can replace that general note with where future testing locations are planned for. Just want to see a little bit of like planning kind of thought out as to where the future compaction tests will happen. As long as keeping the old ones on there so we can see it.
Okay.
And then Frank, you mentioned this earlier, there's the parcel on sheet 300, the 2472, where it looks like the mining went onto that parcel, and it's been reclaimed, and I think the comment from last year was, we want a copy of the agreement. Was that in the application packet, or did we receive it, or do we still need a copy of that agreement for?
Well, help me out, Mr.
We
Meekhof.
received it last year. We dropped it off last year.
I just want to make sure we have it for our records, right? So it's been done, it's been closed out, just,
I
if there's,
believe it's in a copy of the 2022.
It is?
packet. Yep, it was amended into the
Okay.
packet for last year.
okay, that's fine. And my last super nitpicky note is in the general notes section, there's a few updates. Under bullet point 1, the reference for the Walker Code of Ordinances references, it needs to be chapter 34, article 7. And then bullet point 5 talks about the final slope of the gradient shall be no steeper as noted on this plan. Let's just say 1 on 5, because that's a requirement in the ordinance. And that's everything. Thanks.
Any other comments from the board before we open this for public comment? All right, let's open the public comment for the Meekhof sand pit.
Make a motion to open
Oh.
the public hearing.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, public hearing is open. Doesn't look like there's anybody for this mine, so I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is closed. All right, so just some quick discussion from the board on this too. Travis brought up a lot of points. I'm kind of keeping track of those for conditions. For the eventual proposed golf course, Frank or Paula, do you think that's anything we should get to like planning commission anytime soon, or do you think we can take care of this like in future years?
What I'm hearing is that it's speculative at best at this time. So why don't we just make a note in the minutes, and this will be me talking to Laura through the recording here, that Mr. Meekhof has said that they're looking at a potential end use of a golf course, but it's speculative at this time. And if it becomes reality, then we'll need a reclamation plan for that, and then it will also need to be signed off by the planning commission, site plan review.
Okay. Now that's reason I just wanted to bring it up because, you know, I know we really cleaned up the reclamation plans on a lot of these pits a few years ago, so we'll just move through that process if that becomes more of a reality with us. Any other discussion from the board? Gary, do you have anything? I haven't heard from you. No? Okay.
Steve?
For my part, it seems like mostly there's a little bit of administrative paperwork cleaning up, but generally it seems like we're where we need to be on the proposal. I think for my part, I'm comfortable with what's proposed, and I think we've got update to the letter of credit that needs to happen, but other than that, just clean up to the paperwork.
And, Frank, you're gonna help me out with this one.
Yep.
So make a motion to renew the mineral mining review license for Meekhof Properties LLC, Lakeside Aggregates, pending the following, or with the following conditions. And I have a list I can read through. So, update the letter of credit by April 1st, 2023. Adjust where driveway soil erosion tracking control is shown on the plan. Show a 50-foot setback along Butterworth to be consistent with our ordinance. Clear up the phase boundaries on the plan. Add more existing contour labels. Clean up reclamation and restoration years on the plan notes. Show proposed future compaction testing locations. And update code reference and general notes and required slopes. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
And I will add one item, which is all of the plan revisions that Rachel listed need to be done by April 1st, 2023, and then checked off by Travis before we give the license for 2023 as well.
That's a good list, Rachel. I just would add if we could have the same engineer's name on the application and the plans.
All right. With those two conditions added to the ones I listed off, what's the next thing?
Support to the motion.
Can I get support for this motion?
I will support.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
So approved. Thank you. And I do apologize for stumbling through this. It's my first official public hearing. All right. So next on the agenda is the Cordis Mine over on Maynard. If we could have representatives from that sand pit come up and just kind of give us an overview of what was done in 2022, what's proposed in 2023, and we'll follow what we did with this mine. Yeah, if you could,
Yep.
yeah,
I'm Chris Miller with Naderville again, and
Steve Cordis.
and yeah, so we have this pulled up on the screen. Yeah, if you just want to go over kind of the active face on this and yeah, what was mined out in 2022, I think there's some reclamation work going on the northeast area, and then yeah, what's planned for 2023.
so 2022, doing some, continuing to mine the active face that's open. Some berming area that was moved closer to reclamation elevation on the northeast corner of the site next to 695 Maynard and 703 Maynard. There's some reclamation in progress. There's seed down, nothing growing yet. So that is still included in the disturbed area for this year. But the intent is that that should be stabilized by next year. And then as for that, just continuing mining on the active slope and going, chipping away at getting to that total sand extraction.
Right, thank you. Now let's kind of go to the board, but first go over the conditions of the 2022 renewal. We'll just do similar to the last mine and just go one by one. So the first condition was to update the reclamation contours around 3263 Butterworth. Was that completed?
Yes, that was. Those are shown as existing contours this year because that work was already done. Those were added to the plan that was resubmitted in March of last year.
The second condition was to show existing water main on Maynard on the reclamation plan. Was that completed?
Yes, that was done.
Okay. Add the property lines for existing adjacent parcels should be shown on the reclamation plan.
Yes.
Right. And then the last condition from 2022 was a general note section provided on the reclamation plan that pertains to the required information from section 13 of the application.
Yes, that was updated.
Thank you. Then I'll just get through soil erosion notes real quick. No issues from this year. That driveway on Butterworth we talked about in previous years is all fine. I would say, if there's an opportunity to just reclaim that area that contributed soil erosion to that Butterworth driveway that's not being used for the mining, just so those temporary measures can be removed out of there. Maybe explore that this year. I don't think I'll make it that a condition. And then with fees, I'll have to return a check to you and then get the updated one. And then other board member comments. What about you, Travis?
All right, time to be bored again, sorry. I have to say, this plan I thought was probably the best out of the bunch, so good job on that one. I have 7 comments, I'll just run through here real quick. The first is the same as we talked about before. I think this plan is sealed by Jack, and if we can get the name on the application and the sealing of the plan the same, appreciate that moving forward. Second comment has to do with, right now I'm looking at sheet 201. The 2 parcels down on Butterworth, 3275, I think it's actually mostly 3263. When I drove by the site, I know there's some sand being moved around from those parcels, and it looks like it's kind of bleeding into the mine a little bit to the north. That's just for me doing a drive-by. I don't know exactly where the property lines lay out there. Can you just fill us in a little bit on what's going on there and when that's gonna be, complete and done with?
Okay, you're talking about,
Yeah, these
Seatsma's property there.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he bought that property, the elevation was very high, it sat on a mound of sand. So he removed some of that sand out of there, and then what was left was, the previous owner of the property had, excavated right to the lot line. So then he had backfilled with a lot of clay and stuff. So when Mr. Seatsma lowered the sand for a building site, he was left with a big berm of clay and stuff in the back. So we had talked about that last year. I allowed him to just kind of feather that out a letter, and we're watching how the water drains, and so basically we're about done with that. I talked to him this morning, actually. He wasn't able to make it today, but we have just probably a little bit more trimming to do. He's been doing it, and then that should be done. I would think late spring probably.
Okay.
Because I walked it in the fall, right when we were starting to get some snow, and he had it pretty cleaned up looking.
Yeah. I think the big thing that we discussed last year as well is that this isn't part of the mining operation. It's purely just helping a neighbor out that wants to make
It's like a
site
mini
look
mining
better.
going on next to a big mine, right? Yeah. That's fine. So just as a question for the board, is there any sort of agreement that needs to be in place between the property owner and the mine as far as the movement of material between the two? Like, the mine we're talking about today is not mining on these properties. It sounds like
No.
you're accepting fill from them.
I think if anything, it would be a grading easement if you're proposing anything, which could be verbal or.
I've just heard, I think you guys might have had some issues with soil erosion or tracking from the Seatsma operation, not this one. I'm just opening it up for general discussion before we move on here on how we want to handle these two parcels.
There were some conditions in the building department for Seatsma's property, correct?
I think that the key on the Seatsma property was it didn't meet the threshold to be a mineral mine. It was less than 5,000 cubic yards. So then it became, okay, that's allowed by right in the code. So then we come down to just making sure they weren't tracking onto the road, which is where DPW and soil erosion comes in. I don't think we ever received any agreement. I can't recall an agreement between the two property owners. We have noted in the past that it looked like there was some sharing of material, but I think Mr. Cordis explained that now. And so I don't know if we need an agreement because it sounds like it's done or almost done. The pushing the clay onto your property.
Okay.
I think that's two property owners, right?
Yeah,
So what I'm hearing is that the Seats was separate from the Cordis Mine,
yes,
and that we, like DPW and Rachel, we just keep an eye on it for soil tracking, and that's a Seatsma issue, not related. Okay,
Correct, yeah, we never removed any sand out of that area.
Yeah. It looks like it's going the other way, and that's
Yeah,
what you
yeah.
explained, right? So,
so just to clarify, the contours that you show on there now reflect the moving of clay from
Yes,
Seatsma's?
those reflect the current conditions
Okay.
as surveyed. And I believe, so last year on 300, we had proposed contours there for the shaping of that. So those were removed, we surveyed that, and those are the existing contours as a result of that survey.
okay. Well, I appreciate you taking this, Phil, and anything we can do on our end, or to help get the Seatsma issue kind of closed out is good, so thank you for taking the fill there.
I would like to maybe just to that effect, just add a note to the plan that says exactly when those contours were gained, since there's two people working there. So whenever those contours are surveyed, just adding a specific note there, since those might be moving separate from the overall mine operation.
Rachel, I think you already might have touched on this. There's a drive shown off Butterworth here. Is that done?
Yeah, so that wasn't used for mining, it was an old existing drive. There was just some runoff issues
Okay.
when the active phase was changing.
Okay, so it's not being used, the Butterworth Drive.
Right.
Okay, that's fine. Let's see here. On the active face, I think you've done a pretty good job of staying away from the 30-foot buffers on the north side of the site. But the active face now is on the west side. Is that delineated at all, the 30-foot buffer at the top with a
Yes,
fence?
it is
or
on there.
It is? Okay. Have any compaction tests been done on this site in the past?
They
No.
haven't been required,
Okay.
to my knowledge.
And are there any proposed moving forward?
No, we've never really, undercut. We've
Okay.
always retained, like about 650 elevation. I mean, we're getting close to, we're gonna need to slope from that west side coming east, but we've never undercut it, so.
Well, that's ideal, right? So if you mine right down to your final elevation is exactly what we want, right?
Yeah, and actually, we're a little high in some areas and, across the center there, but yeah, that's what we've chose to do to leave building sites.
Okay. That's perfect, none needed then. On sheet, I think it's C300. I don't think this is a major concern because the active, when you look at sheets 300 and compare it to the following one, 306, which is the conceptual residential development, you'll notice that the active face is not part of the buildable lot, right? It's off to the west. It's a big hillside that'll be in somebody's backyard, Lot 7's backyard. So with that in mind, as I'm looking at the active face, it looks like most of the proposed contours are very close, like, will not be undermined. When I get to like the 680 proposed contour, it looks like it's about 15 feet higher than the existing contour there. So that one area does show fill in excess of our 5-foot
Okay.
requirement. Because it's not a buildable portion of the lot, I don't think it's a major issue, but if you can keep it to 5 feet, I think it's preferred. Nope, that's just kind of a general note to kind of keep in the back of our heads. With that being said, what I'd really like to see is on sheet 306, the conceptual plan, anytime there's a residential development like this proposed on a mine, I'd like to just see a general note that says that compaction needs to be should be verified prior to future residential development. And this gets more into like a building issue, but you know, the areas of concern would be like building foundations, driveways, road locations. I appreciate you not undermining the site, so I think that makes it a lot easier. But just a general note in the future that reminds us that when this comes through site plan review for a residential development, I don't know, 10 years down the line or whatever, that we have a good geotechnical investigation in the area just to double check everything. Then my last comment was just the general notes section. I think that's, I don't know what sheet that's on, but one of the sheets. I'm on C300. Just bullet point 1, the ordinance. I think the ordinance right in this section refers like the year it was written. If we can just call out chapter 34, article 7, that's the codified reference. Bullet point 2, if we can just call out final slopes no greater than 1 on 5. And then bullet point 3, I think, is fence is also required for slopes greater than 1 on 5.
Okay.
That's it.
I would like to make a motion to open the public hearing for the Cordis Mine.
I'll support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The public hearing is open for this project. Anybody in the audience? I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, any other discussion from the board for this mine?
Just any feel from Mr. Cordis on when this mine will be wrapped up and when you're going to be coming in for planning commission review of a subdivision or site condo, whatever this is going to be? Looks like you're getting there.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Within 5 years?
I would say that's a pretty good guess, yeah.
Okay.
Depending, of course, on how much sand we sell,
Mm,
but we're getting there, you're right. Yeah,
okay.
so I'm not gonna commit to that exactly.
No, that's
but
fine.
Yeah, I'm thinking in 5 years we're gonna be pretty close.
Okay. Good enough.
Did they provide the updated letter of credit?
Yes, we do have an updated letter of credit for this site.
All right. I'd like to make a motion to approve the mineral mining license for the Cordis Mine, subject to the following conditions. Have the same engineer on the plan as the mineral mining application. Add a note to the area bordering the Sietsma property that includes the survey date for that specific area. Add a note that a geotechnical report will be provided prior to development on the reclamation plan. Update the general notes on the reclamation plan to refer to chapter 34, article 7. And add a note to the general plan that final slopes to be no greater than 1 on 5 and safety fence will be installed for slopes less than 1 on 5.
And Rachel, I would recommend you add one on there, that all of the changes made to the plans will be done by April 1st, 23, and checked by Travis before the license is granted or issued for 2023.
All in favor of approving the 2023 mineral mining license for the Cordis Mine? Say aye. I made a motion. Sorry.
No, that's good. You
Okay.
made the motion. I would just say subject to the conditions
Subject
as
to the
noted.
conditions. All right.
And with that, I would support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, the last mine we will be discussing for the morning session will be the Shoemaker and Sons hauling pit off Wilson Avenue. So I invite the representatives from that mine to come up to the podium and just give a summary of what was completed in 2022, what are you looking at 2023, and then we'll come back to the board and revisit the 2022 conditions.
Morning. Good morning. Chris Miller with Naderveld again.
Bob Shoemaker, Shoemaker and Sons, Iron Family Properties.
All right. Mining continued this year on the active face. Slight, decent, small amount of material pulled out. Couple thousand cubic yards around about there. Disturbed area remains relatively the same. Have some areas that are kind of moving around with topsoil stockpiling, moving those around, but we're keeping the active areas open to allow for mining activities this year.
All right, thank you. Looking at the conditions of the 2022 renewal, let's just run through those and just let me know if they're completed. The first was to add a comment to the plan that if groundwater is hit during excavation, work will be stopped and the city will be contacted. I saw that on this plan, so we're all set there. Second condition was reclamation plan should be revised to show a cluster development optional. I am not sure why this is optional.
Well, last
I can't
year,
remember.
I think last year, I think it was Tricia Anderson had that on pretty much all of them, and we decided, you know, a lot of these are kind of far out from a final development design, so we would just address that when the time came to work with the planning commission, rather than doing it now and have things change down the road.
I think we're good with that. You know, they show a reasonable plan to develop the site as single family, so I think we've got that box checked.
Okay. The third condition was general notes should be added to the reclamation plan in accordance with the required information under part 13 of the application. Was that completed?
Yes, we did add a general note section on there.
Thank you. Condition 4, projected mining schedule should be updated. Is that updated?
Yeah, I believe on the permit this year, we extended out a year, or I think 2025 is the year that's on that permit right now.
Condition 5, show the buffers on sheets C201 and C300. I believe I saw that on there.
Yes, they were added.
And then update the address to 4480 Burton. Other addresses associated with the PPNs listed on the application should also be added to the plan.
Yes, that was updated, and those addresses were added on 201 by the benchmarks and 300 by general notes.
Right, and then the final condition, number 7, was update the note at 4470 Burton to show encroachment work is complete and maintained for future reference on the plan. And
Yes, that note was added.
Cool. All right, thank you. So looking at the board, just for our preliminary comments, I'll just start with Frank and move down the line. All right, I'm gonna check my notes. Oh. Travis?
Okay. Okay, I think I have a few I'll run through here. So, you know, the first one I'm gonna hit is the engineer sealing the plans and the application, if we can make those the same. Chris, do you think that's gonna be you moving forward, or Jack, or?
It will probably be me next year
Good,
as
okay.
well, so.
Unless I missed it, can we show the schedule on the plans? I think it's in the application, but it's nice to have it on the plan set.
Yeah.
Just so we know what the time frame looks like for this mine. My next comment has to do with 4470 Burton, and I'm looking at sheet 201 right now. And I see two notes where it looks like part of the parcels to be deeded from one parcel to another, and then vice versa on the other part of the parcel of 4470. So it says parcel to be deeded from to. Has that been done, or is it still need to occur?
Are you talking about trading footage with a neighbor?
Yeah, it looks like, so it looks like let's say the south part of the parcel is to be deeded from the residential to the mine, and it looks like the west part of the parcel is to be deeded from the mine to the residential.
To my knowledge, that was done 2, 3, 4 years ago already.
Okay.
We can clarify that.
If
in
you
the
can just,
notes.
if you can just clarify the note, and then if it has been done and it was recorded, referencing that on the plan just helps for future questions. I don't know if CDD needs a copy of that deed paperwork, or if the recorded instrument number is sufficient.
Well, it should have been done as a lot line shift through the assessing department. So I think that's just answer the question of following up on, were those lot line shifts done? Are they shown on the current parcel map?
I think we update that note and maybe find that instrument number, that should take care of that.
Yeah, thank you. In that same area at 4470, there's part of a quote-unquote haul road that goes up into 4470. Looking at some aerial photographs, it looks like maybe it's like an oil well access road, so that's not part of the mining operation, that's part of the oil well operation?
Correct.
Okay. I do not believe this is the case, but that Burton Drive is not being used, correct? It's,
Not by the,
I was there 10 years ago and it was all overgrown and, okay.
just the oil people use it.
Use it? Okay. Okay, so the actual drive that's being used that goes out by the American Legion and out to Wilson Avenue, when you look on the plans, it shows the drive. I had a question on, I don't know if anyone's ever asked this or not, but is there an easement that we have for this drive? Because it crosses, looks like a couple different parcels here.
I remember we brought that up last year, and it was just kind of accepted that it's been there for a long time, and we didn't ask for anything formal on it when we brought it up last year.
Okay, so we're just gonna let that sleeping dog lie on this issue? Do we want to have further discussion on that, or?
Well, what do we hear from the applicant? What is the status of that?
It's grandfathered as far as I know.
Grandfathered?
You go way back, and that was the drive, the American Legion, you're talking about the American Legion property, and that was their pit that we purchased it from.
It looks like the American Legion parcel is kind of split off now, and someone else owns the parcel to the south.
Skip Weller owns all that in there now, yeah.
Okay. I just don't want to see you lose your access if someone says, hey, that's my parcel, you know? Then that's why I brought it up for conversation.
I would
Good
assume,
friends with- We're good friends with Mr. Weller, he's a good neighbor, there's no question.
and I would assume if there was an issue, and this doesn't really, you know, it's incumbent on the applicant to make sure that they have access to Wilson, whether it's written or whether it's an oral agreement. I don't know if that's, I don't think we've ever said we need that in writing.
Okay.
I would assume that if there's an issue out there, that Mr. Weller would let us know fairly quickly, and he would say that, look, we've got problems out there, and then we would call this board back together, and then we would probably try to troubleshoot. But as is, I think it's something that's just been accepted for the past, I don't know how many years of mining on this site.
Okay, so does this address need to be added to the mine then, secondarily?
It is added in the address list, I
Is it?
believe. Yeah, we have 2327 Wilson for drive access, 2313 Wilson for a driveway.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, I'll move on. What's just so I can get filled in, I think Scott let me know that this was all what happened in the past, but when you look at the east side of the site, looks like there was encroachment into the 50-foot buffer off Wilson. What's the past history there of like why that happened? And I mean, I don't think it's happening anywhere else on the site. I just was curious what happened there.
Do you remember, Frank?
Yeah, I can help fill in on that one a little bit.
Yeah.
At that location, M11 has an extra wide right-of-way,
Okay.
and Gary can help me out if I'm speaking out of school here, but Mr. Shoemaker asked to do an additional cut into that encroachment or that non-encroachment area. And I think we said, well, you need to go to MDOT and make sure that MDOT's okay with that because you're essentially encroaching up to their right of way.
I just saw the note on the plan, so it looks
I
like that was
did as well,
2011.
Yeah,
I didn't see that at
It's a little
first.
bit lighter, I didn't see that.
That's fine, now okay.
yeah.
So they just have extra wide right of way and MDOT approved it, so
And
it
there's a-
wasn't
and-
really an encroachment, it just was an approval.
It's a long way from the road surface, but I think this board said that we won't grant that, that encroachment unless MDOT says it's okay.
Okay.
And they did, so then we granted the encroachment.
Okay. I'm now gonna go to sheet C 300. So, I mean, Chris, you know, one of our main concerns here is making sure that we're ideally excavating to final end contours so that we can keep our fill under 5 feet so that when you build a house, the foundation gets down to solid compacted soil. So can you please show the reclamation contours on sheet C 300? I think right now I'm kind of flipping back and forth between 300 and 305 to kind of read the existing versus the proposed. They generally look on to me. I don't see anything that jumped out at me as odd, but if you could just show the restoration contours on sheet 300, that will make future reviews easier. Also, just a housekeeping thing on sheet 300, it looks like some of the buffers got labels
Yeah, I
got thrown
saw
off.
that, I noted those.
Have there been any compaction tests on this site in the past? And are there any more proposed in the future? So with that comment being said, is if you did pass compaction test, if you can just, whichever sheet's appropriate, just show where they occurred at, maybe with a date. That helps us, especially as we move close to residential development, just to know where the compaction has already been tested.
Should have that. That should have been done. I've seen that in years past.
There's the actual compaction test results. I'm just asking for like a dot on,
Just want it shown
on
on
the
that
the
plan.
plan so we can see where they were at.
That's what I'm saying. You should have that from years past. That was submitted.
I think what Travis is just asking that they be added to your current plan sheet. So as this goes forward, if there are areas that were filled and compacted, a future board will be able to see those easily.
Yeah, without going through every single year's files trying to find.
And that can be on the reclamation plan if you want.
Okay.
Keep in mind that when these sites that are going to be redeveloped come in for planning commission review, they're gonna undergo a pretty extensive review of, okay, what's the status of the ground out there? Because the building inspector certainly is gonna wanna see that for any future permits for homes or garages or other driveways, et cetera, so.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It just sets the stage for when the residential development does occur, we can say, okay, these are the compaction tests we have out there existing, and that makes the future geotechnical investigation to kind of fill in the gaps a little bit easier. So that leads into one of my second to last note here was sheet 305 to once again add that note that compaction should be verified prior to future residential development, especially in critical areas of foundations, driveways, roads. That's just to remind the planning commission to take a good look at that in depth when that time occurs. And the last note is on the general notes. Bullet point 1, if we could just reference the chapter 34, article 7 for the ordinance. And bullet point 2, if we can say final slope no greater than 1/5. I think that's it. Overall, pretty good plan though, I think.
Any other general discussion items from the board?
Yeah, I got a question, because my application for permit, page 56 is blank. I don't know. Anybody else got that?
Is this Shoemaker mine?
Yeah.
Oh, you said page 56. Yeah.
Most likely, which page is that? The page 56.
Yeah.
I'll
There's
take a
some-
look at that. I know, there's the new permit form this year.
Everything else was on
I'll
the
check
priors was all done, but
There's some notes in red on page 57.
Right.
Really tiny print.
So that's a good condition, that Laura did a good job of updating our application. Okay, so
If
maybe it's just a
you
printing.
look at it on the screen in front of you right now, you can see that it is filled in. That's a
I
printing
think
error.
it just
I
didn't populate
apologize.
when it printed.
Okay,
okay, no, just curious.
The fillable forms need to be saved in a certain format if you blend them into different, there's 3 of them in your packet, and I can fix that for next year. Apologies.
okay.
All right, with that discussion, kind of coming to an end, I would like to make a motion to open the public hearing. Can I get support? All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. All right, the public hearing is open. Is there anybody with public comment regarding the Shoemaker and Sons hauling pit? All right, doesn't appear there is. So with that, I would like to make a motion to close the public hearing. All in favor say aye. Aye. All right, the public hearing for the Shoemaker pit is closed. All right, Paula, did they submit their updated letter of credit?
Yes, we have an updated letter of credit for the Shoemaker pit.
Cool. And then, Bob, did you receive my email with the fees for 2023, the soil erosion? You did? Okay. Did you have that payment today, or I can just add it to the conditions? Okay, that's fine. Then any other comments just going down the line with this pit before I make a motion? All right. I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2023 mineral mining license for Shoemaker and Sons hauling, subject to the following conditions. Submit the soil erosion inspection fees by April 3, 2023. Update the engineer on the plan and the application so that they are the same. Clarify the note at 4470 Burton, parcel to be deeded on the plan, and note that the parcel boundaries are accurately reflected on the plan. Add the reclamation contours to sheet 300 and fix the buffer labels. Add any compaction testing information with the date that compaction testing was done to the plan. And then add a compaction note to sheet 305. And under the general notes, reference chapter 34, article 7, and note that all final slopes will be greater than 1/5. And then with the last condition that the updated plan shall be submitted by April 1st, 2023.
That's really good. I don't know how you keep up with all these comments, so. Just one more thing to add, if we can add the schedule on the plans.
All right, with the addition of Travis's condition, can I get support?
I'll support it.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, and that closes it out for the last mine for the morning session. Did we want to go into general member comments now or wait until after the afternoon session?
We can wait until the afternoon
Okay.
session. I will say that I appreciate Travis really getting into the plans, and being willing to do the follow-up as well. That helps us out quite a bit, so I appreciate that, Travis. And good job, Rachel, too.
Thanks. Thank you for your assistance. So I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 11:03 a.m. Do I need to make a motion for that? All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 11:03 a.m. Can I get
Second
support?
it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.